We welcome the Reverend Debbie Apoldo, Vicar at St. Christopher's Episcopal Church, Spartanburg, South Carolina.
Greetings from St. Christopher's Episcopal Church, here just a couple of miles from where you all are at the Episcopal Church of the Advent. We're in the Hillcrest neighborhood. I hope many of you, most of you probably know me. I'm Debbie Apoldo, and I'm the vicar here. You would know me from my 4 years at the Advent, which I remember with great fondness. You know, there is a very close connection between St. Christopher's and the Advent. On September 4th of this year, St. Christopher's celebrated their 60th anniversary of being a church community here in this neighborhood. And it was the Advent that planted this church here. Many of the members of the Advent made a commitment to come and be a part of this church to get it started. And so many of you, I know, still have a great deal of fondness for St. Christopher's. I love that about these two churches and the fact that there is this historic and heartfelt connection between us. When Paula texted me and asked me if I would do one of these devotions, she said that the team that was putting it together was looking to have some guest presenters for these devotions, and I really felt quite honored. I texted back and said, Paula, I'm not sure I've ever been a special guest before at anything. So I thank you for making me feel special and giving me the opportunity to spend just a little time with you here. You know, the theme for these devotionals has been a good and joyful thing. Most of you will recognize those words as coming from the introduction to the proper preface of our liturgy for Holy Eucharist. It is a good and joyful thing always and everywhere to give thanks to you, Father Almighty. You know, the good and joyful thing, I get that. It is a good and joyful thing to give thanks. It blesses our lives and has the possibility of changing our attitude. It's the always and everywhere part that I sometimes struggle with. Most recently, some of you will know that I was quite sick in July. I managed somehow, don't really know how, to contract COVID-19. And I was very sick. I was in the hospital for 9 days. The thing that really surprised me about that experience was while I was in the hospital and really struggling, I had very little desire to have God enter into that, to be present with him. I didn't have a whole lot of desire to even pray about my circumstances. I think I was just so sick that I slept a lot, and I had become dependent upon my doctors and the nurses and the medicines to help me get better. Mercifully, I have gotten better. I'm really almost about 100% recovered. I stayed a little bit angry for a while after I got home and as I recovered. It wasn't that I was angry at God. I was just frustrated and angry about the circumstances. How could I have gotten so sick? I rarely get sick, and I didn't have any underlying conditions. I have great blood pressure, no diabetes, no lung issues. I rarely even get a cold. Try not to be arrogant about that, and to be grateful for the fact that I don't get sick very often. But boy, I was just in a funk about having gotten sick. And it took me a good little while to turn that attitude of grumbling to turn the corner to an attitude of gratitude, to begin to feel joy again. And what did it for me was realizing how many people were praying for me, how many people were standing in the gap and keeping company with God over my circumstances, even when I didn't much feel like it. How many people came by with food and sent texts and cards and well wishes? It really made me realize how grateful that I was, even when I was in the thick of my grumbling. But you know, the thing that I was the most grateful about as I realized what was going on and thought about this was the fact that we have a God who can hear our dissatisfaction, a God who can hear our anger, a God who is in the midst of our frustration and fear and stays with us nevertheless, even when we're not recognizing him. He is there with us. There's a wonderful prayer that I discovered years ago. It's a prayer written by a man named Harry Williams, who was the dean of Trinity College, Cambridge, in England. And it's a prayer of just raw feelings toward God. And I'm going to read it to you now. Oh God, I am hellishly angry. I think so-and-so is a swine. I'm tortured by worry about this or that. I'm pretty certain I have missed my chances in life. This or that has left me feeling terribly depressed. But nonetheless, here I am like this, feeling both bloody and bloody-minded, and I'm going to stay here for 10 minutes. You are most unlikely to give me anything, I know that, but I'm going to stay for 10 minutes nonetheless. Keeping company with God even in those times of frustration, anger, bitterness. Eventually, if we can come to the place of gratitude, if we can come to a place of joy, it transforms how we respond. It transforms how we feel. In my case, it transformed me into realizing how much I was loved by others and by God himself. Just going to close with another little passage. This is a book that I found on the bargain book aisle at Barnes & Noble. The title of this book is Living Life as a Thank You. It's a great little book. And here's the quote. I love this. Gratitude can help us to transform our fears into courage, our anger into forgiveness, our isolation into belonging, and another's pain into healing. Saying thank you every day will create feelings of love, compassion, and hope. Thanks be to God.